mixed back then on one track. So the engineer could not bring up later the vocal or bring down another instrument. It had to be perfect from the get-go.
So which explains why the performance always had it to be perfect at the time.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and when the singer wanted to redo the song because he felt his voice was not adequate yet, all the other musicians had to play with him perfectly again, like the guitar player, his solo. So I think back then there was a much higher demand on singers and musicians than nowadays. I mean, you still, you cannot fix everything, but you have so many tools where you can at least say, well, this is a great take, and there's only like one place which just absolutely has to be fixed, and I can do this electronically because the singer maybe is not in town anymore or something like that.
So did you have any regrets during the process of making all this happen or putting yourself in some sort of spotlight in this music industry?
No, in that sense, I don't think I have any regrets. I have to say, like I said earlier, that I feel extremely fortunate that all this worked like that. I mean, there was another studio here in Bakersfield which went essentially bankrupt, and the place, this beautiful studio which was built, got torn down, and now they do something different with that building, and that's just too unfortunate. So like I said, I was lucky with the cost for the building and all that stuff.
So what is it like being your own boss and taking all the phone calls? And just in case if anybody had to go to you, they have to go directly to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is something which is just normal being self-employed. I mean, I think one important thing is that the sales pitch on the phone, because you have to make sure that you explain what the benefits of your studio is. Like one big benefit I have here is like that there's a separate vocal booth. So a band can play out here, the singer's in the vocal booth, and if his voice is good, you can keep it. You don't have to redo it.
Right.
And of course, like explaining on the phone in a good way how all this works. Like sometimes I get phone calls from people which have never done any recording before, so they are really wondering, well, how do you want me to do this?
Right.
So you have to be able to explain, and there's a big plus in the fact that I play guitar and bass, because there are lots of recordings I can do, and I play all the parts myself. Or I work with another musician, which is a keyboarder, very good guy, Chris Newfield. And he does all the keyboard stuff, and I do all the bass and guitar stuff. And we have recorded for a client in Los Angeles during the last 2 years, I think 180 songs, wow, which is a lot of stuff,
Right.
So, yeah.
So how do your experiences as an audio engineer shape your business decisions and approach to working with the clients?
Yeah, well, I mean, working with a client, I think you just have to have the right attitude. Like when people come in and they're obviously nervous as hell, then you have to have an attitude which mellows that out slowly but surely. And there are sometimes groups coming in which have done recordings before. They don't really need a lot of help,
Right.
But then there are other groups which never done that before, so they're very appreciative of any hint you give them with recording, or tell them, well, there's a certain thing, it would be much better if you do it like this because it costs you less studio time to do it that way,
So when marketing yourself, how has that developed, and what are some reasons for a specific success that you've had with your business, and why do you think it was successful?
Well, number one, I should say, my father back in Germany, he published a newspaper. Yeah. And The newspaper is still there, even though it's now 25 years after he passed away. But you can still find his name on the internet, actually. Walter Langendeoerfer was his name, and he came up with a concept. And of course, he was a master in developing ads for this newspaper, in visual appearance as well as in what he was talking about. You know, a picture is so and so many times better advertisement than words. So when you can include photographs or anything, that is an important element. So I think I learned a lot from him, because back then I sometimes worked part-time in his print shop and so forth, and I think I learned a lot about advertisement there.
So how has your approach to your career changed over the years?
Well, that's a more difficult question. Well, the approach was always the same in a sense. One thing I already talked about earlier was you have to update yourself. I mean, just the technical changes, these last 2-3 updates from Pro Tools gives you as an engineer, that is, I mean, huge what you can do. And you have to study that, because otherwise you cannot utilize all the tools you have, you know.
Correct.
And so that's also a big part. But over the years, I think it hasn't changed a lot. I mean, nowadays there's more competition, because a lot of people can do a lot of recordings at home with a laptop, at least the foundation for a song, you know. And but I don't really see a big change. Yeah, that's just about what I can say on that.
Saying that, maybe let's say I'm an artist and I'm trying to release a song or an album, how do you think I would be able to market myself?
Well, nowadays there are so many tools which are free of charge. I mean, YouTube, on the internet, you know, like CD Baby, you know, a lot of groups publish their CDs there, and there are lots of very successful, you should say, let me just say globally, internet-based groups or performers which get successful just advertising there. Once they have a certain following, you know, what was your question again?
It was, so basically talking about how should I market myself, and how would I be able to market myself if I ever release an album or a song.
Yeah. Well, number one, it's really important to have something which is salesworthy.
Right.
You know, there are sometimes people coming in where you can say, well, that sounds nice, but you still have to refine this a little bit. Choice of songs is also very important, you know. And I had sometimes people coming in, they want to record like a song which already was a big hit years ago, and you have to, and hope that they can approach record labels with that. And I would have to carefully explain to them, well, I don't think so, because this song you hear 1,000 times a day on the radio, you know. So you have to come up with something new. Billie Eilish, for example, was, to me, amazing, you know, and her brother, which does all the music, and they've done it out of their bedroom, you know, with a computer or a laptop, whatever they used, and at least at the start of the foundation, you know, and the writing is very, very important to have a sense for, well, what can be successful nowadays, you know. And I don't have all the knowledge in that. I don't think anybody has all the knowledge in that, what really can be a huge success. I hear sometimes music, and I purposely don't mention the name right now, of artists which even win a Grammy, and I have to listen to this now, because to listen to the mixes and how this whole thing is done, and then I listen to it, and it's like, I cannot make myself listen to this whole song at all, because I think it's like not good, or a mechanical product. Like there's so much done nowadays with programming that some stuff I cannot identify with. There's a lot of hip-hop stuff or alternative music, which to me is really good.
Right.
But on the other hand, I also had, I can say that hopefully, rappers coming through here which just cuss to a beat, and I don't see the sense for that.
Right.
mean, I heard all these words before.
Yeah.
You're not telling me anything new. But yeah, I think the music production, for rap, hip hop, and everything, is just very important. To get a feel for that, what can sell, and obviously, Billie Eilish and her brother, they got it made. Everything they've done became a huge success. Interesting lyrics, and her voice is excellent, and the music production, outstanding. So, more power to her.
So, this is more kind of a personal question, but for questions out
Sure.
to fellows of mine, do you have any advice for people looking to enter your field, or any aspiring engineers who are interested in starting their own business?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Some sort of way you have to learn this.
Right.
It sometimes seems to be so easy. Okay, well, within 30 minutes you could learn this, how to record a track on Pro Tools. This is fairly easy. But then there's so much more stuff. So you have to learn that and really put effort in that. Like I said, we do these training courses for over 20 years. Then the other thing is, you have to have knowledge about music up to a certain extent. I don't think it is necessary for a good engineer to play instruments. I would say it helps tremendously, because there's certain things. How should somebody know what to do in a certain recording situation if you're not a musician?
Mm-hmm.
But I met guys before which are great engineers, and they don't have like a ton of musical knowledge. Like one of them was certainly Ron Dante. You might not know the name, but he was the singer of the Archies.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was Barry Manilow's producer, and he worked for Ray Charles and Pat Benatar and all kinds of people. And I worked with him here on projects for, I think, 8-9 years or so, and he was absolutely fantastic. He had this ear for music, like knowing what's important in a mix, and I learned a lot from him. There are always like different aspects of a mix. You can mix 5 engineers, they all mix the same song different,
Right.
But yeah, to have a really good foundation in knowledge, I think, is important. A good foundation, and know as much as you want to learn about music, because that's what you're going to be recording, If somebody has absolutely no music knowledge or ear for it, then that person cannot even tell if a singer is off in pitch or if a drummer is off in timing, So you have to be able to hear that. And I worked with some producers also in the late 90s, which, boy, that was a tough lesson, for the musicians they worked with, because they were like hardcore precise. That got to be 100% on, or you go home and practice. That's so. But yeah, that's.
Well, that's the last of the questions. Thank you, Mr. Langendeoerfer.
Absolutely.
I
No
appreciate
problem.
you having me here.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thank you.